Less is More. Master the Art of Simple Living, published by the Growth Mind Audiobook. Introduction. We live in a world that constantly tells us we need more money, more possessions, more achievements, more entertainment, more commitments. From the moment we wake up until we go to sleep, we are surrounded by messages that encourage us to accumulate, consume, and chase the next thing. Yet, despite having more than any generation before us, many people feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and disconnected from what truly matters. The truth is that more is not always better. In many cases, more creates stress instead of satisfaction. A cluttered home can create a cluttered mind. An overloaded schedule can leave little room for joy. Endless distractions can pull us away from our goals, relationships, and sense of purpose. We spend so much time trying to add things to our lives that we rarely stop to ask whether those things are actually improving our lives. Simple living is not about deprivation. It is not about giving up everything you own, abandoning ambition, or living with the bare minimum. Instead, simple living is about being intentional. It is about removing what no longer serves you so that you can make room for what truly does. It is about focusing your energy, attention, time, and resources on the things that bring genuine meaning and fulfillment. Throughout this audiobook, you will discover how to simplify every area of your life. You will learn how to clear physical clutter, reduce mental noise, manage your time more effectively, strengthen your relationships, simplify your finances, and create habits that support a calmer and more purposeful lifestyle. Most importantly, you will learn that simplicity is not about having less for the sake of having less. It is about creating more freedom, more clarity, more peace, and more happiness. The journey ahead is not about becoming someone else. It is about removing the unnecessary so that the best version of yourself can emerge. As you listen to these chapters, keep an open mind and remember one powerful truth. When you learn to live with less, you often discover that you gain far more than you ever imagined. Chapter 1. Audit your life and identify what truly matters. Most people spend their lives moving from one task to another without ever stopping to ask a simple but powerful question: is this the life I truly want to live? Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and before long, years have passed. We become so busy responding to demands, obligations, and distractions that we rarely take the time to examine whether the direction we are moving in aligns with our deepest values. The first step towards simple living is not throwing away possessions or reorganizing your schedule. The first step is awareness. Before you can simplify your life, you must understand what is currently filling it. You cannot remove what is unnecessary until you identify what is taking up your time, energy, attention, and resources. Think of your life as a house. Over the years, that house has accumulated furniture, decorations, and belongings. Some of those items are valuable and meaningful. Others are things you barely notice anymore. The same principle applies to your daily life. Some commitments, habits, relationships, and goals add value and purpose. Others simply occupy space. An audit is the process of examining everything honestly. It requires stepping back and looking at your life with fresh eyes. Ask yourself how you spend your days. What occupies most of your thoughts? What activities consume most of your time? What commitments create stress rather than fulfillment? What possessions serve a purpose, and which ones simply take up space? Many people discover something surprising when they perform this exercise. They realize that much of their energy is devoted to things they do not truly care about. They attend events out of obligation. They maintain habits that no longer benefit them. They purchase items they do not need. They chase goals that were handed to them by society rather than chosen intentionally. Simple living begins when you stop accepting everything by default. Instead of asking what you can add to your life, start asking what deserves to remain. One helpful exercise is to identify your core priorities. Imagine that you could focus on only 5 areas of your life. What would they be? Family, health, personal growth, meaningful work, spiritual development, creativity. Whatever your answers may be, those priorities should guide your decisions. The challenge is that many people claim certain things are important while living in ways that suggest otherwise. Someone may say that family is their highest priority, yet spend very little quality time with loved ones. Another person may value health but consistently neglect exercise, sleep, and nutrition. An audit reveals the difference between what we say matters and what actually receives our attention. Remember this principle: your calendar and your bank account often reveal your true priorities more accurately than your words. Look closely at where your time and money go. Do those choices reflect the life you want to create? As you evaluate your life, avoid judging yourself harshly. The purpose of this process is not guilt, it is clarity. Every person accumulates unnecessary commitments and distractions over time. The goal is simply to become aware of them. Another important part of the audit involves examining your mental environment. Physical clutter is easy to see, but mental clutter can be even more damaging. Constant worry, endless comparison, negative self-talk, and information overload can consume enormous amounts of energy. Pay attention to the thoughts that dominate your mind. Are they helping you move toward a better life, or are they holding you back? You should also evaluate your relationships. The people around you have a tremendous influence on your mindset, habits, and overall well-being. Consider which relationships encourage growth, positivity, and authenticity. Likewise, recognize which relationships consistently create stress, negativity, or emotional exhaustion. This process may feel uncomfortable because it requires honesty. Simplicity is impossible without honesty. You cannot create a meaningful life while pretending that everything is working perfectly. Growth begins the moment you acknowledge what needs to change. As you complete your personal audit, you may discover areas that need significant adjustment. That is perfectly normal. In fact, it is a sign that the process is working. Every insight gives you an opportunity to make a better choice moving forward. Simple living is not about removing things randomly. It is about making room for what matters most. Every unnecessary commitment you eliminate creates space for something meaningful. Every distraction you remove creates room for focus. Every possession you release creates room for peace. The quality of your life is determined not only by what you add, but also by what you choose to leave behind. When you take the time to audit your life honestly, you gain something incredibly valuable: clarity. And clarity is where every meaningful transformation begins. Before moving on to the next chapter, take a moment to reflect. Look at your life as it is today. Ask yourself what truly matters. Then ask yourself whether your daily actions reflect those priorities. The answers may change everything. Chapter 2. Eliminate physical clutter and reclaim your space. Once you have taken the time to audit your life and identify what truly matters, the next step is to address one of the most visible obstacles to simple living: physical clutter. The environment around you has a powerful influence on your thoughts, emotions, and daily behavior. Whether you realize it or not, the condition of your physical space affects your energy, focus, productivity, and peace of mind. Many people become so accustomed to clutter that they stop noticing it. Closets overflow with clothes that are rarely worn. Drawers are filled with forgotten items. Shelves are crowded with objects that serve no real purpose. Garages become storage units for things that have not been touched in years. Over time, these possessions accumulate until they begin to dominate the space we live in. The problem is not simply that clutter occupies physical space, it also occupies mental space. Every item in your environment competes for your attention. Even when you are not consciously thinking about it, clutter creates a subtle sense of unfinished business. It reminds you of decisions that have not been made, projects that have not been completed, and possessions that have not been organized. Imagine walking into two different rooms. One is crowded with piles of belongings, scattered papers, and overflowing shelves. The other is clean, organized, and intentional. Which room feels more relaxing? Which room makes it easier to think clearly? Which room invites focus and peace? Most people naturally prefer the second environment because simplicity reduces mental noise. One of the biggest misconceptions about decluttering is the belief that possessions automatically improve life. While certain items provide value and enjoyment, many possessions become burdens. They require maintenance, cleaning, storage, organization, and attention. Every item you own carries a hidden cost that goes beyond its purchase price. Simple living does not require you to own nothing. The goal is not extreme minimalism. The goal is intentional ownership. Every item in your life should either serve a useful purpose or bring genuine value. If it does neither, it may be time to let it go. As you begin the decluttering process, start small. Trying to organize your entire home in a single day can feel overwhelming. Instead, focus on one drawer, one shelf, one closet, or one room at a time. Small victories create momentum. Each area you simplify will inspire confidence and motivation to continue. When evaluating possessions, ask yourself a few simple questions. Do I use this regularly? Does it improve my life? Would I buy it again today? If the answer is no, consider whether it truly deserves a place in your home. One of the most common barriers to decluttering is emotional attachment. People often keep items because of memories, guilt, or fear. They hold on to gifts they never use because they feel obligated. They save belongings from the past because they represent a former chapter of life. They keep things just in case, despite having no realistic need for them. It is important to remember that memories do not live inside objects. A meaningful experience remains part of your life even if you no longer own a physical reminder of it. Letting go of an item does not mean letting go of the memory associated with it. Another challenge is the fear of scarcity. Many people worry that they may need an item someday. As a result, they keep countless possessions they have not used in years. While preparation is wise, excessive accumulation often stems from anxiety rather than necessity. In many cases, the cost of storing and managing unused items far outweighs the small chance of needing them in the future. As your space becomes simpler, you may notice unexpected benefits. Cleaning becomes easier, finding things becomes faster, decision-making becomes simpler. Your home begins to feel more open and inviting. Most importantly, your mind experiences a greater sense of calm. A simplified environment also helps reinforce intentional living. When your surroundings are filled only with things that support your values and goals, it becomes easier to focus on what truly matters. Instead of being distracted by excess, you are surrounded by clarity. Remember that decluttering is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing practice. New possessions will enter your life and circumstances will change over time. The key is developing the habit of regularly evaluating what you own and ensuring that it continues to serve a meaningful purpose. Every item you remove creates a little more space. not just physical space, but mental and emotional space as well. That extra room can be filled with peace, creativity, gratitude, and presence. It can provide the freedom to focus on experiences instead of possessions and relationships instead of things. When you eliminate physical clutter, you are doing more than organizing your home. You are reclaiming control over your environment and your attention. You are choosing quality over quantity, intention over accumulation, and freedom over excess. In the journey towards simple living, few actions are as powerful as learning to own less so that you can experience more. Chapter 3. Simplify your daily decisions and reduce mental fatigue. Every day, from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep, you make countless decisions. Some are small, such as what to wear, what to eat, or which route to take to work. Others are larger and more significant, involving finances, relationships, career choices, and personal goals. While each decision may seem insignificant on its own, together they place a tremendous demand on your mental energy. One of the hidden benefits of simple living is that it reduces the number of unnecessary decisions you must make each day. By simplifying your choices, you preserve your energy for what truly matters. Instead of constantly reacting to countless options, you create systems and routines that allow life to flow more smoothly. Many people suffer from what psychologists call decision fatigue. This occurs when the quality of your decisions declines because your mental resources become depleted. The more choices you make throughout the day, the harder it becomes to think clearly and act intentionally. By evening, even simple decisions can feel exhausting. Think about how often you waste energy on minor choices. You may spend 10 minutes deciding what to wear, another 15 deciding what to eat, and several more choosing how to spend your free time. Individually, these moments seem harmless. Collectively, they consume attention that could be directed toward meaningful work, relationships, or personal growth. Highly effective people often simplify their daily routines for this very reason. They understand that mental energy is limited. Rather than using that energy on trivial matters, they reserve it for decisions that have a greater impact on their lives. The goal is not to eliminate all choices. The goal is to eliminate unnecessary choices. One of the best ways to accomplish this is by creating routines. A routine is a pre-made decision. Instead of asking yourself what to do every morning, you follow a simple plan. Instead of constantly debating how to organize your day, you rely on a system that has already been established. Morning routines are particularly powerful. The way you begin your day often influences everything that follows. A simple and consistent morning routine can reduce stress, improve focus, and create a sense of control. It does not need to be complicated. In fact, the simpler it is, the more sustainable it becomes. The same principle applies to evening routines. Many people end their days in a state of chaos, moving from one distraction to another until they finally collapse into bed. A simple evening routine can help you unwind, reflect, and prepare for the next day with greater clarity. Another effective strategy is to simplify your environment. When your surroundings are organized and intentional, everyday decisions become easier. You spend less time searching for things, less energy managing clutter, and less attention dealing with unnecessary distractions. Technology can also contribute significantly to decision fatigue. Every notification, message, email, and social media update demands your attention and forces your brain to make choices. Should you respond now? Should you ignore it? Should you investigate further? These constant interruptions fragment your focus and drain your mental resources. One of the most valuable habits you can develop is limiting unnecessary inputs. You do not need to consume every piece of news, respond to every message immediately, or stay updated on every trend. By reducing information overload, you free your mind to concentrate on what genuinely deserves your attention. Learning to prioritize is equally important. Not all decisions carry equal weight. Some choices have a major impact on your future, while others have very little consequence. Simple living encourages you to identify the few decisions that truly matter and give them your best energy. Consider adopting a simple rule. If a decision has little long-term importance, do not spend excessive time worrying about it. Save your mental resources for choices involving your health, relationships, goals, values, and personal growth. Perfectionism often makes decision-making more difficult than necessary. Many people become trapped in endless analysis because they fear making the wrong choice. They compare options, seek additional information, and delay action while searching for certainty. The result is often stress, frustration, and inaction. Simple living encourages progress over perfection. In many situations, a good decision made quickly is better than a perfect decision delayed indefinitely. Trust yourself to make thoughtful choices and move forward. Another powerful habit is creating boundaries. Every time you say yes to something, you are making a decision about how your time and energy will be used. If you say yes too often, your life becomes crowded with obligations that compete for your attention. Learning to say no protects your priorities and reduces unnecessary complexity. As you simplify your daily decisions, you may notice a remarkable change. Life begins to feel lighter. Your mind feels clearer. You experience less stress and more focus. Instead of constantly reacting to countless demands, you become intentional about where your energy goes. The purpose of simple living is not to create a life with fewer opportunities. It is to create a life with fewer distractions. By simplifying your choices, establishing routines, reducing unnecessary inputs, and focusing on what truly matters, you reclaim one of your most valuable resources, your attention. And when your attention is no longer scattered across hundreds of insignificant decisions, you gain the freedom to invest it in the people, experiences, and goals that bring the greatest meaning to your life. Chapter 4. Break free from the trap of constant consumption. One of the greatest obstacles to simple living is the belief that happiness can be purchased. Modern society is built around consumption. Every day, advertisements, social media posts, and marketing campaigns encourage us to buy more, upgrade more, and accumulate more. We are constantly told that the next purchase will make us happier, more successful, more attractive, or more fulfilled. Yet despite having access to more products, services, and conveniences than ever before, many people remain dissatisfied. The reason is simple. Consumption may provide temporary excitement, but it rarely creates lasting fulfillment. The thrill of acquiring something new often fades quickly, leaving us searching for the next thing that promises happiness. This cycle can become endless. We buy something, enjoy it briefly, adapt to it, and then begin wanting something else. Before long, consumption becomes a habit rather than a conscious choice. We spend money not because we need something, but because buying has become a way to cope with boredom, stress, loneliness, or dissatisfaction. Simple living requires breaking free from this pattern. It begins by understanding the difference between needs and wants. Needs are essential. They support your health, safety, and well-being. Wants, on the other hand, are desires. There is nothing wrong with having wants, but problems arise when wants become endless and start controlling your decisions. Many people mistakenly believe that a better life requires more possessions. In reality, a better life often comes from greater clarity. The question is not how much you own. The question is whether what you own genuinely adds value to your life. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to pause before making purchases. In a world designed to encourage impulse buying, a simple pause can be transformative. Before purchasing something, ask yourself a few questions. Do I truly need this? Will this improve my life in a meaningful way? Am I buying this because it aligns with my values or because I am seeking temporary emotional satisfaction? Often, you will discover that the desire to buy fades when given enough time. Many purchases are driven by emotion rather than necessity. By creating space between the impulse and the action, you regain control over your choices. Another important step is recognizing the emotional triggers behind consumption. People frequently shop when they feel stressed, anxious, lonely, or frustrated. Purchasing something can create a temporary sense of relief or excitement. However, because the underlying problem remains unresolved, the satisfaction quickly disappears. True contentment cannot be purchased. It comes from meaningful relationships, purposeful work, personal growth, gratitude, and inner peace. While material possessions can improve comfort and convenience, they cannot replace the deeper sources of fulfillment. Social comparison also fuels excessive consumption. We live in a culture where people constantly compare themselves to others. Social media often magnifies this tendency by showcasing carefully selected highlights of people's lives. When we see others displaying success, luxury, or achievement, we may feel pressure to keep up. The problem is that comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone with more money, a larger house, a newer car, or greater status. If your happiness depends on matching what others have, you will remain trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. Simple living encourages a different approach. Instead of measuring success by accumulation, measure it by alignment. Are your choices aligned with your values? Are you spending your resources on what truly matters to you? Are you creating a life that reflects your priorities rather than society's expectations? Gratitude is one of the most effective antidotes to excessive consumption. When you focus on what you already have, the desire for constant acquisition begins to weaken. Gratitude shifts your attention from scarcity to abundance. It reminds you that fulfillment often comes from appreciating what is present rather than chasing what is absent. This does not mean you should never buy anything. Simple living is not about denying yourself enjoyment. It is about becoming intentional. When you make purchases that genuinely support your goals, values, and well-being, they can add meaningful value to your life. The key is ensuring that you are making conscious decisions rather than reacting to impulses or external pressure. As you become more mindful of consumption, you may notice other benefits as well. Financial stress decreases. Clutter becomes easier to manage. Decision-making becomes simpler. Most importantly, you begin to realize that your happiness is not dependent on acquiring more. Freedom comes when you stop allowing possessions to define your sense of worth. It comes when you recognize that enough is not a number, but a mindset. A person who constantly wants more will never feel satisfied, regardless of how much they possess. A person who appreciates what they already have can experience abundance even with relatively little. Breaking free from the trap of constant consumption is not about living with less for the sake of having less. It is about creating space for what truly enriches your life. When you stop chasing every new desire, you gain time, energy, money, and attention. Those resources can then be invested in experiences, relationships, growth, and purpose. In the end, the greatest luxury is not owning everything you want. The greatest luxury is reaching a point where you no longer need more in order to feel complete. Chapter 5. Master your time by removing the non-essential. Time is the most valuable resource you possess. Unlike money, it cannot be earned back once it is spent. Every day, every hour, and every minute is a portion of your life that you exchange for something else. Yet many people treat their time as if it were unlimited. They fill their schedules with obligations, distractions, and activities that add little value, leaving themselves exhausted and wondering where the day went. Simple living is not just about owning fewer things. It is also about using your time more intentionally. A simpler life requires a simpler schedule. It requires the courage to remove what is unnecessary so that you can focus on what truly matters. One of the biggest misconceptions in modern culture is the belief that being busy means being productive. People often wear busyness like a badge of honor. They fill every moment with activity and assume that a packed schedule is evidence of success. But activity and achievement are not the same thing. Being busy simply means you are doing something. Being productive means you are doing the right things. Many people spend their days reacting instead of acting. They respond to notifications, answer emails, attend meetings, scroll through social media, and deal with countless interruptions. By the end of the day, they have been active for hours, but have made little progress on what matters most. The first step in mastering your time is identifying where it currently goes. Just as you audited your possessions and priorities earlier, you must also audit your schedule. Pay attention to how you spend your hours. You may be surprised by how much time disappears into habits and activities that provide little return. Consider the amount of time spent on unnecessary entertainment, excessive screen use, gossip, procrastination, and mindless distractions. While occasional relaxation is important, many people consume far more than they realize. Small amounts of wasted time may seem insignificant, but they accumulate quickly. An hour lost each day becomes hundreds of hours over the course of a year. Once you understand where your time is going, you can begin removing the non-essential. This requires making difficult choices. Every commitment you accept comes with an opportunity cost. When you say yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else. The question is whether your choices align with your priorities. One of the most powerful skills in simple living is learning to say no. Many people overcommit because they fear disappointing others. They agree to obligations they do not want, attend events they do not enjoy, and take on responsibilities that drain their energy. Over time, their schedule becomes crowded with activities that leave little room for what truly matters. Saying no is not selfish. It is a way of protecting your time and honoring your priorities. Every meaningful goal requires space. If your schedule is already full, there is no room for growth, creativity, rest, or personal development. Another important principle is focusing on high-value activities. Not all tasks contribute equally to your life. Some activities create significant results, while others consume time without producing meaningful benefits. The key is identifying the few actions that have the greatest impact and giving them your best energy. This is especially important because your energy fluctuates throughout the day. Most people have periods when they are naturally more focused, creative, and productive. Use those hours for your most important work rather than wasting them on low-priority tasks. Simple living also requires making room for rest. In a culture that glorifies constant productivity, rest is often seen as a luxury. In reality, rest is essential. Without adequate recovery, focus declines, stress increases, and performance suffers. A life filled with constant activity eventually leads to burnout. Rest is not laziness, it is preparation. It allows your mind and body to recharge so that you can engage fully with what matters. Whether through sleep, quiet reflection, time in nature, or meaningful leisure, rest is a necessary part of a balanced life. Creating margin in your schedule is another powerful strategy. Many people plan every moment of every day, leaving no room for unexpected events or opportunities. As a result, even minor disruptions create stress. A simpler schedule includes breathing room. It allows flexibility and reduces the pressure of constant urgency. When you begin removing the non-essential, you may notice something surprising. You do not become less productive. You often become more productive. With fewer distractions and commitments competing for your attention, you can focus more deeply and perform at a higher level. More importantly, you gain something that is increasingly rare in today's world: presence. You can fully engage in conversations, enjoy meaningful experiences, and appreciate the moment without constantly feeling rushed. At the heart of simple living is the recognition that time is life. How you spend your hours is how you spend your days, and how you spend your days is how you spend your life. Every unnecessary commitment you remove gives you back a piece of that life. Mastering your time is not about squeezing more tasks into your schedule. It is about creating space for what matters most. When you eliminate the non-essential, you gain the freedom to focus on your goals, nurture your relationships, care for your well-being, and live with greater intention. In the end, a simple life is not measured by how much you accomplish. It is measured by how meaningfully you spend the time you have. Chapter 6. Strengthen your relationships by simplifying your social life. When people think about simple living, they often focus on possessions, schedules, or finances. While these areas are important, there is another part of life that deserves equal attention: relationships. The quality of your relationships has a profound impact on your happiness, health, and overall well-being. Yet many people allow their social lives to become as cluttered and complicated as their homes. Modern technology has made it easier than ever to connect with others. We can send messages instantly, follow hundreds of people online, and maintain contact with individuals around the world. Ironically, despite having more ways to connect, many people feel lonelier than ever. They are surrounded by communication, but starved for meaningful connection. Simple living teaches an important lesson. When it comes to relationships, quality matters far more than quantity. A few deep and genuine relationships are often more valuable than dozens of shallow connections. The goal is not to know more people. The goal is to build stronger relationships with the people who truly matter. Many individuals spend enormous amounts of time maintaining connections that add little value to their lives. They feel obligated to attend social events they do not enjoy. They engage in conversations that are superficial and draining. They invest energy in relationships that are built on convenience rather than genuine care. Just as clutter can fill your home, unnecessary social obligations can fill your life. They consume time, attention, and emotional energy that could be invested elsewhere. Simplifying your social life means becoming intentional about where you direct that energy. One of the first steps is identifying the relationships that matter most. Think about the people who consistently support you, encourage you, and bring out the best in you. These are the relationships worth nurturing. They are the people who celebrate your successes, stand beside you during difficult times, and accept you for who you are. Meaningful relationships are built through presence. Unfortunately, presence has become increasingly rare. Many conversations are interrupted by phones, notifications, and distractions. People may be physically together while mentally somewhere else. True connection requires attention. When you spend time with someone, practice being fully present. Listen carefully. Put away distractions. Show genuine interest in what they have to say. Small moments of focused attention often create stronger bonds than grand gestures. Another important aspect of simplifying your social life is learning to establish healthy boundaries. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear conflict or rejection. As a result, they allow others to consume more time and energy than they can realistically afford. Healthy boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are guidelines that protect your well-being and preserve your capacity to maintain meaningful relationships. Without boundaries, resentment often grows. With boundaries, relationships become healthier and more sustainable. You should also pay attention to the emotional impact of the people around you. Some relationships leave you feeling energized, inspired, and supported. Others leave you feeling drained, stressed, or discouraged. This does not mean you should immediately remove every challenging person from your life. However, it does mean you should be mindful of how different relationships affect your overall well-being. Toxic relationships can create significant emotional clutter. Constant criticism, negativity, manipulation, and drama consume valuable mental energy. Simple living encourages you to reduce unnecessary sources of stress whenever possible. In some cases, this may require limiting contact with individuals who consistently undermine your peace. At the same time, remember that strong relationships require effort. Simplifying your social life is not about withdrawing from others or becoming isolated. It is about investing more deeply in fewer, more meaningful connections. Relationships thrive when they are given time, attention, and care. One of the simplest ways to strengthen relationships is through consistency. You do not need elaborate plans or expensive experiences. A thoughtful conversation, a shared meal, a phone call, or a small act of kindness can have a lasting impact. Meaningful relationships are often built through small moments, repeated over time. Another valuable practice is expressing gratitude. Many people assume that loved ones already know how much they are appreciated, yet taking the time to communicate gratitude can strengthen bonds and deepen trust. A simple expression of appreciation can make someone feel valued and understood. As you simplify your life, you may notice that your priorities begin to shift. Material possessions become less important. Endless busyness loses its appeal. In their place, relationships often emerge as one of life's greatest sources of fulfillment. At the end of life, few people wish they had spent more time shopping, working, or worrying about insignificant details. Most people treasure the memories they created with those they care about. They remember conversations, laughter, support, and shared experiences. Simple living helps you make room for those moments. By reducing unnecessary social obligations, establishing healthy boundaries, eliminating toxic influences, and focusing on meaningful connections, you create a richer and more fulfilling life. The truth is that a simple life is not a lonely life. It is a connected life. It is a life where relationships are chosen intentionally, nurtured consistently, and valued deeply. When you simplify your social world, you discover that having fewer but stronger relationships often leads to greater happiness, greater peace, and a far greater sense of belonging. Chapter 7. Quiet the noise and reclaim your attention. One of the most valuable assets you possess is your attention. It shapes your experiences, influences your decisions, and determines what you accomplish in life. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. Yet, in today's world, attention has become one of the most contested resources. Every notification, advertisement, social media platform, news headline, and digital device is competing for a share of your focus. As a result, many people live in a constant state of distraction. Their minds jump from one thought to another, one screen to another, and one task to another. They rarely experience true concentration because they are surrounded by endless noise. This noise is not always audible. It often exists in the form of information overload, mental clutter, and constant stimulation. Simple living requires more than clearing physical clutter. It also requires clearing mental clutter. To create a life of peace and purpose, you must learn how to quiet the noise and reclaim control of your attention. The first step is recognizing that not all information deserves your focus. Modern technology has given us access to more information than any generation in history. While this can be beneficial, it can also become overwhelming. Many people consume far more information than they can realistically process or use. Consider how often you check your phone throughout the day. A notification appears, and your attention immediately shifts. A message arrives, and your focus is interrupted. You open a social media app intending to spend a few minutes only to discover that half an hour has passed. These small interruptions may seem harmless, but they accumulate quickly. Every interruption comes with a cost. When your focus is broken, your mind needs time to return to the task at hand. Frequent distractions reduce productivity, weaken concentration, and increase stress. Over time, constant interruption trains your brain to expect stimulation, making sustained focus more difficult. One of the most effective ways to simplify your life is to reduce unnecessary inputs. This does not mean abandoning technology entirely. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, its value depends on how it is used. The goal is not elimination, but intentionality. Start by becoming aware of your digital habits. How much time do you spend scrolling through social media? How often do you check email or news updates? How many notifications interrupt your day? Awareness creates the opportunity for change. Many people discover that they consume information out of habit rather than necessity. They check their phones because they are bored. They browse social media because they want a quick distraction. They read endless news updates even when those updates have little impact on their daily lives. Simple living encourages you to become more selective. Instead of consuming everything available, focus on information that is relevant, meaningful, and useful. Ask yourself whether a particular source of information adds value to your life or simply creates more noise. Silence is another powerful tool for reclaiming attention. Many people feel uncomfortable with silence because they are accustomed to constant stimulation. The moment there is a pause, they reach for a device, turn on music, or seek another distraction. Yet silence provides something that constant noise cannot: space for reflection. When your mind is constantly occupied, it becomes difficult to think deeply. Silence allows ideas to develop, emotions to settle, and clarity to emerge. Some of life's most important insights arrive during moments of quiet reflection. You do not need hours of silence to experience its benefits. Even a few minutes each day can make a difference. A quiet walk, a period of meditation, or simply sitting without distractions can help restore mental balance and improve focus. Another important practice is single tasking. Modern culture often celebrates multitasking, but research and experience consistently show that multitasking reduces effectiveness. When you divide your attention between multiple tasks, each task receives less focus. Simple living encourages doing one thing at a time and doing it well. When you work, work fully. When you rest, rest fully. When you spend time with loved ones, give them your complete attention. Presence creates deeper experiences and better results. Protecting your attention also requires setting boundaries. You do not need to respond to every message immediately. You do not need to stay informed about every trending topic. You do not need to be available to everyone at all times. Creating boundaries allows you to focus on what matters without being constantly pulled in different directions. As you begin reducing distractions, you may initially feel uncomfortable. Your mind has likely become accustomed to constant stimulation. However, with time, you will notice significant changes. Your focus will improve, your stress levels will decrease, your thoughts will become clearer. You will find it easier to engage deeply with meaningful work and relationships. Most importantly, you will regain a sense of control. Instead of allowing external forces to dictate your attention, you will choose where your focus goes. This is one of the greatest benefits of simple living. A simpler life is not necessarily a quieter world. The world will always contain noise, distractions, and demands. The difference is that you learn how to navigate them intentionally. You learn to protect your attention as the valuable resource it is. When you quiet the noise and reclaim your attention, you gain something priceless: the ability to fully experience your life. You become more present, more focused, and more connected to what truly matters. And in a world filled with endless distractions, that ability is a remarkable advantage. Chapter 8. Create healthy routines that make life easier. One of the greatest misconceptions about freedom is the belief that it comes from having no structure. Many people assume that routines are restrictive, repetitive, and boring. They imagine that a life without schedules or habits offers greater flexibility and enjoyment. In reality, the opposite is often true. A lack of structure frequently creates confusion, stress, and unnecessary decision-making. Healthy routines, on the other hand, simplify life and create the foundation for lasting success. Every day, you rely on habits whether you realize it or not. Much of what you do is automatic. The way you start your morning, how you respond to challenges, what you eat, how you spend your free time, and how you prepare for sleep are all influenced by routines that have developed over time. The question is not whether you have routines. The question is whether those routines are helping or hurting you. Simple living is built on the principle of reducing unnecessary complexity. Healthy routines accomplish exactly that. They eliminate the need to constantly decide what to do next. Instead of relying on motivation, which often comes and goes, routines provide consistency and direction. Think about how much mental energy is consumed when every decision must be made from scratch. If you wake up each morning without a plan, you immediately begin making choices. What should I do first? Should I exercise? What should I eat? How should I spend my day? These decisions may seem small, but they accumulate quickly. A routine removes much of that uncertainty. One of the most valuable routines you can create is a morning routine. The first hour of your day often sets the tone for everything that follows. If your morning begins with chaos, distraction, and rushing, those feelings often carry into the rest of the day. If your morning begins with purpose and clarity, you are more likely to maintain that mindset throughout the day. A simple morning routine does not need to be complicated. In fact, simplicity is the key. You might begin by waking up at a consistent time, drinking water, engaging in light exercise, practicing gratitude, reading something inspiring, or planning your priorities for the day. The specific activities matter less than the consistency with which you perform them. The same principle applies to evening routines. Many people underestimate the importance of how they end their day. An intentional evening routine helps you transition from activity to rest. It provides an opportunity to reflect, relax, and prepare for the next day. A simple evening routine might include reducing screen time, reviewing the day's accomplishments, preparing for tomorrow, reading, or spending quiet time with loved ones. These small actions create a sense of closure and help improve the quality of your sleep. Healthy routines are particularly powerful because they compound over time. A single healthy action may seem insignificant. However, when repeated consistently, small actions produce remarkable results. 10 minutes of daily exercise may not transform your health overnight, but over months and years, the impact becomes substantial. Reading a few pages each day may seem minor, but it can lead to the completion of dozens of books over time. The secret is not intensity, the secret is consistency. Many people fail because they attempt dramatic changes that are difficult to sustain. They create complicated plans that require enormous effort and discipline. When motivation fades, the system collapses. Simple living encourages a different approach. Focus on small habits that can be maintained consistently. Make success easy. Build routines that fit naturally into your lifestyle. The simpler the habit, the more likely you are to continue it. Another important benefit of routines is that they reduce stress. Uncertainty often creates anxiety. When you have established systems for important areas of your life, you spend less time worrying about what needs to be done. You know what comes next because you have already created a framework. Routines also help protect your priorities. Without structure, urgent demands can easily consume your attention. Important activities such as exercise, personal growth, family time, and rest often get pushed aside. A routine ensures that these priorities receive the attention they deserve. At the same time, flexibility remains important. A routine should serve you, not control you. Life is unpredictable and circumstances will occasionally require adjustments. The goal is not perfection. The goal is creating supportive patterns that make life easier rather than harder. As you develop healthy routines, pay attention to how they affect your energy and well-being. Keep what works. Adjust what does not. Remember that simplicity is about intentionality, not rigidity. Over time, your routines become part of your identity. Healthy choices require less effort because they become automatic. Instead of constantly struggling to stay on track, you create an environment where success happens naturally. A simple life is not built through occasional bursts of effort, it is built through consistent daily actions. Healthy routines transform those actions into habits. They reduce stress, conserve mental energy, and create a sense of stability in an unpredictable world. When you establish routines that support your goals and values, life becomes easier. You spend less time deciding and more time living. You eliminate unnecessary complexity and create space for what truly matters. And that is one of the greatest advantages of mastering the art of simple living. Chapter 9. Focus on experiences instead of possessions. One of the most profound shifts in simple living is learning to value experiences more than possessions. In a world driven by consumption, it is easy to believe that happiness comes from owning more things. People often chase new gadgets, clothes, cars, and luxury items in the hope that these possessions will bring lasting satisfaction. Yet over time, it becomes clear that material things rarely deliver the fulfillment we expect from them. Possessions can provide comfort and convenience, but their impact on happiness is usually temporary. The excitement of buying something new fades quickly as it becomes part of everyday life. What once felt special becomes ordinary. This cycle repeats itself, leading many people to constantly seek the next purchase in search of the same feeling of excitement. Experiences, on the other hand, work differently. They shape who you are. They become part of your memory, your identity, and your personal story. A meaningful conversation, a shared meal, a journey to a new place, or a moment of laughter with someone you care about often stays with you far longer than any material possession. Simple living encourages you to shift your focus from accumulation to participation. Instead of asking what you can own, you begin to ask what you can experience. This shift changes the way you see the world. Life becomes less about collecting objects and more about collecting moments. One of the reasons experiences are so powerful is that they grow in value over time. A possession may lose its appeal, but a memory often becomes more meaningful as time passes. You may forget the price of a meal, but you remember the conversation you had while eating it. You may no longer use a particular item, but you remember the joy of a journey or the feeling of a special day. Experiences also contribute more deeply to personal growth. When you travel, learn something new, meet different people, or step outside your comfort zone, you expand your understanding of the world. These experiences shape your perspective and help you grow in ways that material possessions cannot. Another important benefit of focusing on experiences is that they strengthen relationships. Shared experiences create bonds between people. Whether it is a simple walk, a trip, or a shared challenge, these moments build connection and trust. Relationships thrive on time spent together, not on things exchanged. In contrast, possessions can sometimes create distance. People may become preoccupied with protecting, maintaining, or comparing what they own. This can lead to stress, competition, or dissatisfaction. Experiences, however, tend to bring people closer together because they are shared rather than owned. Simple living does not mean rejecting all material comfort. It means recognizing the difference between what adds temporary satisfaction and what creates lasting meaning. A comfortable home, useful tools, and basic conveniences are valuable. However, when possessions become the primary source of identity or happiness, life becomes imbalanced. One practical way to shift toward experiences is to become more intentional with your resources. Instead of automatically spending money on material items, consider how that same money could be used to create meaningful experiences. This might include traveling, learning a skill, spending time with loved ones, or engaging in activities that bring joy and growth. Time is also an important factor. Many people spend large portions of their lives working to acquire things they rarely use. Simple living encourages you to reconsider how you use your time. Rather than dedicating all your energy to earning and accumulating, you can allocate time toward experiences that enrich your life. Gratitude plays a key role in this shift as well. When you appreciate the present moment, you become more aware of the value of experiences already happening in your life. A quiet evening, a meaningful conversation, or a simple moment of peace can become deeply fulfilling when you are fully present. Another important insight is that experiences are less cluttered than possessions. Objects require storage, maintenance, and organization. They take up physical and mental space. Experiences, on the other hand, do not weigh you down. They add richness to your life without adding burden. As you begin to prioritize experiences, you may notice a subtle but powerful transformation. Your focus shifts from what you lack to what you are living. You become less concerned with comparison and more engaged in the present. Life feels more vibrant, more meaningful, and more connected. Over time, this approach leads to a deeper sense of fulfillment. Instead of measuring success by what you own, you begin to measure it by how fully you have lived. The moments you experience, the connections you build, and the growth you achieve become the true markers of a rich life. Simple living is not about having less for the sake of having less. It is about making room for more of what truly matters. When you focus on experiences instead of possessions, you discover that life itself becomes the greatest source of wealth. And that is where real simplicity begins to feel like abundance. Chapter 10. Simplify your finances and build lasting freedom. Money plays a central role in modern life. It influences the choices you make, the opportunities available to you, and the level of stress you experience on a daily basis. Yet, despite its importance, many people have a complicated and emotional relationship with money. They earn it, spend it, worry about it, and often feel controlled by it rather than in control of it. Simple living encourages a different approach. Instead of allowing money to create stress and complexity, you learn to use it as a tool that supports your values and priorities. Financial simplicity is not about having less money. It is about having more clarity, control, and intentionality in how you manage what you have. One of the biggest sources of financial stress is lifestyle inflation. As income increases, spending often increases at the same rate or even faster. People upgrade their homes, cars, clothes, and entertainment, assuming that higher income should automatically lead to higher consumption. Over time, this creates a cycle where no matter how much money is earned, there is never enough left over. Simple living challenges this pattern. It encourages you to separate your needs from your desires and to make conscious decisions about how additional income is used. Instead of increasing spending every time income rises, you can choose to increase savings, reduce debt, or invest in experiences and goals that bring long-term value. Another important aspect of financial simplicity is reducing unnecessary expenses. Many people are surprised when they take the time to carefully examine where their money goes each month. Small recurring costs often add up significantly over time. Subscriptions, unused services, impulse purchases, and convenient spending can quietly consume a large portion of income without providing meaningful value. By simplifying your financial life, you gain awareness of these patterns. This awareness allows you to make intentional adjustments. The goal is not to eliminate all spending, but to ensure that every expense aligns with your priorities and values. When your spending reflects what truly matters to you, money becomes a source of support rather than stress. Debt is another factor that often complicates financial life. While not all debt is harmful, unmanaged or excessive debt can create long-term pressure and limit your freedom. Monthly obligations reduce flexibility and increase financial anxiety. Simple living encourages a mindful approach to borrowing and a focus on reducing unnecessary financial commitments. A simplified financial life also includes building stability. Having savings, even in small amounts, creates a sense of security. It provides a buffer against unexpected events and reduces the fear of uncertainty. Financial stability is not about accumulating vast wealth. It is about creating enough margin in your life to feel secure and confident in your decisions. One of the most powerful shifts in financial simplicity is moving from a consumption mindset to a value-based mindset. Instead of asking what you can afford to buy, you begin to ask whether something is worth your time, energy, and money. This subtle change transforms the way you view purchases and priorities. When you align your spending with your values, money becomes more meaningful. For example, if health is important to you, investing in nutritious food, exercise, or wellness may feel more valuable than spending on unnecessary luxuries. If relationships matter most, spending on shared experiences may bring greater satisfaction than material possessions. Financial simplicity also involves reducing comparison. Many financial decisions are influenced by what others have or what society considers successful. Comparing your financial situation to others can lead to unnecessary pressure and dissatisfaction. Simple living encourages you to focus on your own path rather than external standards. Another key principle is automation. By simplifying how money flows in and out of your accounts, you reduce the need for constant decision-making. Automated savings, bill payments, and budgeting systems help create consistency and reduce financial stress. This allows you to focus less on managing money and more on living your life. As your financial life becomes simpler, you may notice a significant change in your overall well-being. Stress decreases, clarity increases. You feel more in control of your decisions. Instead of reacting to financial pressure, you begin to plan with confidence and intention. Most importantly, financial simplicity creates freedom. When money is no longer a constant source of worry, you gain the ability to make choices based on what truly matters to you. You are no longer trapped by excessive expenses or financial obligations. You have space to pursue meaningful goals, experiences, and relationships. Simple living teaches that wealth is not defined by how much you spend, but by how much freedom you have. A financially simple life is not about restriction. It is about liberation. It is about using money in a way that supports a calm, purposeful, and intentional life. When you simplify your finances, you are not just managing money more effectively. You are removing one of the major sources of stress in modern life. In doing so, you create space for peace, stability, and long-term freedom. And that is one of the most powerful outcomes of mastering the art of simple living. Chapter 11. Let go of perfectionism and embrace enough. Perfectionism often appears harmless at first. It can even look like a strength. People who describe themselves as perfectionists are often seen as careful, disciplined, and high-achieving. They strive for excellence, pay attention to detail, and refuse to settle for anything less than the best. On the surface, this seems admirable. However, beneath that surface, perfectionism often creates stress, delay, frustration, and unnecessary complexity. The problem with perfectionism is not the desire to do things well. The problem is the belief that something must be perfect before it is acceptable. This mindset creates an endless loop of refinement, hesitation, and self-criticism. Tasks take longer than necessary. Decisions become harder than they should be. Progress slows down because nothing ever feels finished. In simple living, perfectionism is one of the biggest sources of mental clutter. It fills your mind with unrealistic expectations and constant evaluation. Instead of appreciating what you have accomplished, you focus on what is still imperfect. Instead of moving forward, you keep revisiting the same task, trying to make it slightly better each time. Many people do not realize how much time and energy they lose to perfectionism. They delay starting projects because they are waiting for the perfect idea. They avoid sharing their work because it does not feel good enough. They overthink decisions because they are afraid of making the wrong choice. Over time, this creates a pattern of hesitation and inaction. Simple living encourages a different mindset. It teaches that clarity and progress are more valuable than perfection. A simple life is not about flawless execution. It is about meaningful action. It is about moving forward with intention, even when things are not perfect. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is learning to accept good enough. This does not mean lowering your standards or ignoring quality. It means recognizing when something is already sufficient to serve its purpose. Many tasks do not require perfection to be effective. A message does not need to be perfectly written to be understood. A decision does not need to be flawless to be correct. A project does not need to be perfect to make an impact. When you embrace enough, You free yourself from unnecessary pressure. You begin to realize that most of the time, improvement has diminishing returns. The difference between something that is good and something that is perfect is often small, but the time and effort required to achieve that difference can be enormous. Perfectionism also prevents learning. When you are afraid of making mistakes, you avoid taking risks. Yet mistakes are one of the most powerful sources of growth. Every skill you develop, every lesson you learn, and every improvement you make comes from experience, not from waiting for perfect conditions. Simple living encourages experimentation over hesitation. Instead of waiting until you are fully prepared, you take action and adjust along the way. This approach creates momentum. Once you begin, progress becomes easier because you're no longer stuck in analysis. Another important aspect of overcoming perfectionism is changing how you view failure. In a perfectionist mindset, failure feels like something to avoid at all costs. It becomes a sign of inadequacy rather than a natural part of learning. In reality, failure is simply feedback. It shows you what does not work, so you can move closer to what does. When you release the need to be perfect, you also release unnecessary fear. You become more willing to try new things, explore new opportunities, and express yourself without hesitation. This openness leads to creativity, growth, and greater confidence over time. Perfectionism often creates a false belief that other people expect perfection from you. In most cases, this is not true. People value authenticity, effort, and progress far more than flawless execution. They connect with honesty, not perfection. When you accept your imperfections, you become more relatable and more human. Simple living is about removing what complicates life unnecessarily. Perfectionism is one of those complications. It turns simple tasks into stressful challenges. It turns decisions into endless debates. It turns progress into delay. By letting go of perfectionism, you simplify not only your actions, but also your mindset. One practical way to overcome perfectionism is to set limits instead of chasing perfection. Give yourself a specific amount of time to complete a task. Decide in advance when something is finished. Accept that improvement can always continue later, but completion comes first. These small boundaries help prevent endless refinement. Another helpful approach is to focus on progress rather than perfection. Ask yourself whether you are moving forward instead of whether something is flawless. Progress builds momentum. Perfection often creates paralysis. As you begin to embrace enough, you will notice a shift in your life. Tasks become easier to complete, decisions become quicker, stress begins to decrease. You start to feel a sense of freedom that comes from no longer demanding perfection from yourself. Most importantly, you begin to experience more joy in your work and daily life. Instead of constantly judging your results, you begin to appreciate your effort. Instead of delaying action, you begin to embrace movement. Instead of striving for an impossible ideal, you begin to live in reality. A simple life is not a perfect life. It is a life that is lived fully, honestly, and intentionally. When you let go of perfectionism and embrace enough, you create space for growth, peace, and meaningful progress. And in that space, life becomes not only simpler, but far more fulfilling. Chapter 12. Cultivate mindfulness and live in the present. One of the greatest sources of unnecessary complexity in life is living outside the present moment. Many people spend much of their time mentally trapped in the past or projected into the future. They replay old mistakes, worry about what might go wrong, or imagine scenarios that have not yet happened. In doing so, they miss the only moment that actually exists, the present. Simple living is not only about reducing physical possessions, commitments, or distractions. It is also about simplifying your inner world. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing your attention back to the present moment and fully experiencing life as it is, rather than as you fear it will be or wish it had been. When the mind is constantly moving between regret and anxiety, it creates unnecessary suffering. The past cannot be changed, and the future has not yet arrived. Yet many people give most of their mental energy to these two illusions. As a result, they feel overwhelmed even when their external circumstances are stable. Mindfulness begins with awareness. It is the simple act of noticing where your attention is. Are you fully engaged in what you are doing right now, or is your mind elsewhere? Are you listening to the person in front of you, or are you thinking about something that happened earlier or something that might happen later? Bringing your attention back to the present is a skill that can be developed. At first, the mind will wander frequently. This is natural. The goal is not to eliminate thoughts, but to observe them without being controlled by them. Each time you notice your attention drifting and gently bring it back, you strengthen your ability to stay present. Simple living becomes much more powerful when combined with mindfulness. A simple environment, a simple schedule, and simple habits all become more meaningful when you are fully present while experiencing them. Without mindfulness, even a simple life can feel rushed and distracted. With mindfulness, even ordinary moments become rich and fulfilling. One of the most effective ways to practice mindfulness is by focusing on your senses. Pay attention to what you can see, hear, feel, smell, and taste in the present moment. Whether you are eating, walking, working, or resting, engaging your senses fully anchors you in reality. This helps break the cycle of mental noise and brings clarity to your experience. Breathing is another powerful anchor to the present moment. Your breath is always happening now. It does not exist in the past or future. By focusing on your breathing, even for a few moments, you can quickly bring your attention back when it becomes scattered. A slow, intentional breath signals to your mind and body that it is safe to pause and reset. Mindfulness also changes the way you relate to stress. Many stressful thoughts are not about what is happening right now, but about what might happen. When you return to the present, you often realize that in this moment, things are more manageable than they seemed in your mind. This awareness reduces unnecessary emotional pressure. Another important aspect of mindfulness is acceptance. This does not mean passivity or resignation. It means acknowledging reality as it is before trying to change it. When you resist reality, you create internal conflict. When you accept it, you create clarity. From clarity, better decisions can be made. Simple living and mindfulness both encourage slowing down. In a fast-paced world, there is constant pressure to move quickly, multitask, and stay busy. However, speed often reduces awareness. When you slow down, you begin to notice details you would otherwise miss. You become more intentional with your actions and more connected to your experiences. Mindfulness also enhances gratitude. When you are present, you begin to notice small moments that are often overlooked. A quiet moment in the morning, a conversation with a friend, the feeling of sunlight, or the comfort of rest all become more meaningful when experienced fully. Gratitude naturally arises when attention is given to the present. Over time, practicing mindfulness leads to a shift in how you experience life. Instead of constantly chasing the next moment, you begin to appreciate the current one. Instead of being controlled by thoughts, you begin to observe them with greater clarity. Instead of feeling scattered, you become more centered and calm. A simple life is not only about what you remove from your external environment, it is also about what you cultivate within yourself. Mindfulness helps you remove unnecessary mental noise and return to what is real, here and now. It allows you to experience life more directly, more fully, and more peacefully. When you learn to live in the present, life becomes less about escaping discomfort and more about engaging with reality. You begin to see that peace is not found in a different future or a different past, but in your ability to fully experience this moment. And in that realization, simplicity becomes not just a lifestyle but a way of being. Chapter 13. Design a life around purpose, not pressure. Many people live their lives under constant pressure without even realizing it. Pressure to succeed, pressure to keep up, pressure to meet expectations, and pressure to follow paths that were never truly chosen by them. Over time, this pressure becomes so familiar that it feels normal. People begin to confuse urgency with importance and busyness with meaning. They move through life reacting to external demands instead of intentionally shaping their own direction. Simple living offers a different approach. It invites you to step back from external expectations and design a life based on purpose. Purpose is not something that is imposed from the outside. It is something that is discovered within. It is the understanding of what truly matters to you, what gives your life meaning, and what aligns with your values. When you live under pressure, your decisions are often reactive. You choose based on what others expect, what seems urgent, or what appears successful in the eyes of society. When you live with purpose, your decisions become intentional. You choose based on alignment with your values and long-term vision for your life. One of the most important steps in designing a purposeful life is defining what success means to you personally. Many people adopt definitions of success that are not their own. They believe success means more money, more status, more possessions, or more recognition. While these things may have value, they do not automatically create fulfillment. A purposeful life begins when you question these assumptions. Ask yourself what a meaningful life actually looks like for you. Is it freedom of time, strong relationships, creative expression, personal growth, peace of mind? The answer will be different for everyone, but clarity is essential. Once you define your own version of success, simplicity becomes a natural result. You begin to remove what does not align with your purpose. You stop pursuing goals that do not matter to you. You reduce commitments that drain your energy. You let go of distractions that pull you away from what is truly important. Pressure often comes from comparison. When you compare your life to others, you begin to measure your worth against external standards. You may feel behind, inadequate, or unsuccessful simply because your life does not match someone else's highlight reel. However, comparison rarely reflects reality. It only reflects perception. Simple living encourages you to step away from comparison and return to your own path. Your life does not need to look like anyone else's in order to be meaningful. In fact, the more you try to copy others, the further you move away from your own purpose. Another important aspect of living with purpose is learning to distinguish between urgency and importance. Many tasks feel urgent, but not all are important. Urgency demands immediate attention, while importance reflects long-term value. A life driven by urgency becomes chaotic and reactive. A life guided by importance becomes focused and intentional. When you prioritize purpose, you begin to say no more often. This is not because you are closing yourself off from opportunities, but because you are protecting your energy for what truly matters. Every time you say yes to something that does not align with your purpose, you are indirectly saying no to something that does. Designing a life around purpose also requires reflection. You must regularly step back and evaluate whether your actions align with your values. Without reflection, it becomes easy to drift into routines and habits that no longer serve you. Reflection brings awareness, and awareness creates the possibility of change. Simple living supports this process by removing distractions that cloud your thinking. When your life is less cluttered, you can think more clearly about where you are going and why. Clarity leads to better decisions. Better decisions lead to a more meaningful life. Another key principle is focusing on depth rather than breadth. Many people try to do too many things at once. They spread their energy across multiple goals, interests, and commitments. As a result, they achieve very little depth in any area. A purposeful life often involves focusing deeply on fewer things that truly matter. When you align your life with purpose, you also experience a shift in motivation. Instead of relying on external pressure to push you forward, you begin to move from internal direction. You no longer need constant motivation because your actions are connected to meaning. Purpose becomes a natural source of energy. Over time, this way of living reduces stress and increases fulfillment. You stop chasing what society tells you to want and start building a life that reflects who you truly are. The noise of external pressure fades, and what remains is clarity. A simple life is not an empty life. It is a focused life. It is a life guided by intention rather than obligation. When you design your life around purpose instead of pressure, you create space for what truly matters to grow. And in that space, life becomes not only simpler, but deeply meaningful. Chapter 14. Commit to less and unlock more freedom. As this journey through simple living comes to an end, one truth stands above all others. Simplicity is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It is a continuous choice. It is a way of living that requires awareness, discipline, and regular reflection. It is not about reaching a final state where everything is perfectly organized and nothing more needs to change. Instead, it is about learning to consistently choose less of what does not matter so that you can experience more of what does. Most people believe that freedom comes from having more options, more possessions, and more opportunities. While choices can be valuable, too many choices often create confusion rather than freedom. When everything feels important, nothing truly stands out. When every opportunity is pursued, energy becomes scattered. True freedom comes not from having everything available, but from clearly knowing what to focus on and what to let go. Committing to less is not about limitation. It is about clarity. It is about removing the excess that clouds your thinking, drains your energy, and distracts your attention. When you reduce unnecessary commitments, you create space in your life. That space becomes the foundation for freedom, creativity, and peace. One of the biggest challenges in maintaining simplicity is the tendency to gradually accumulate complexity again. Even after simplifying your possessions, schedule, and habits, life naturally begins to fill itself back up. New opportunities appear. New responsibilities arise. New distractions emerge. Without conscious effort, clutter slowly returns. This is why simplicity must be an ongoing practice. It requires regularly asking yourself whether the things in your life still deserve a place there. It requires being willing to let go, even when something once felt important. Growth often involves release. What served you in one season of life may no longer serve you in another. Committing to less also means being intentional about what you allow into your life moving forward. Every new commitment, possession, or obligation should be considered carefully. Instead of automatically saying yes, you pause and evaluate whether it aligns with your values, goals, and well-being. This simple shift prevents unnecessary complexity from building up again. Freedom is not found in doing everything. It is found in doing what matters most and letting go of the rest. When your life is filled with fewer but more meaningful commitments, you gain the ability to engage deeply with each one. Your attention becomes more focused, your energy becomes more directed, and your experiences become more fulfilling. Another important aspect of committing to less is learning to trust that you do not need to do everything. Many people feel pressure to take advantage of every opportunity, attend every event, and pursue every possibility. However, trying to do everything often leads to exhaustion and dissatisfaction. There is always more available than you can realistically pursue. Recognizing this allows you to choose with intention rather than obligation. As you continue to simplify your life, you will notice that freedom shows up in subtle but powerful ways. Your mind becomes less cluttered. Your days feel less rushed. Your decisions become easier. You are no longer constantly overwhelmed by competing demands. Instead, you move through life with greater clarity and calm. Simple living also enhances your ability to be present. When your life is not overcrowded with unnecessary commitments, you have more time and mental space to engage fully in each moment. Conversations become deeper. Experiences become richer. Even ordinary activities feel more meaningful because your attention is no longer divided. It is important to understand that simplicity does not mean isolation or deprivation. It does not mean withdrawing from life or avoiding responsibility. Instead, it means engaging with life more intentionally. It means choosing quality over quantity in every area, from relationships to work to daily habits. The freedom that comes from simplicity is not always loud or dramatic. It is often quiet. It is the feeling of waking up without overwhelm. It is the calm of knowing what matters and what does not. It is the confidence of making decisions without confusion. It is the peace that comes from not being pulled in every direction at once. Ultimately, committing to less is an act of self-respect. It is a decision to protect your time, energy, and attention. It is a recognition that your life is finite and valuable. Every unnecessary commitment you release gives you back a piece of that life. As you move forward beyond this audiobook, the real work begins. Not in learning more, but in applying what you have learned. Each day presents new opportunities to simplify, to let go, and to choose intentionally. The more consistently you do this, the more freedom you will experience. A simple life is not about doing less in a passive sense. It is about doing less of what does not matter so you can fully live what does. When you commit to less, you do not lose richness in life. You gain it. You gain clarity, presence, and freedom. And in that freedom, you discover that less truly does become more. Conclusion. Over the course of this audiobook, you have explored a different way of living, one that challenges the constant pressure to accumulate more and instead focuses on clarity, intention, and peace. Simple living is not a trend or a temporary adjustment, but a long-term shift in how you relate to your possessions, your time, your attention, and ultimately, your life itself. In earlier chapters, you learned how clutter is not only physical, but mental, how unnecessary commitments drain your energy, and how constant consumption can quietly shape dissatisfaction. You also discovered that time and attention are your most valuable resources, and when they are scattered, life begins to feel overwhelming. Simplicity is the process of gathering those scattered parts of your life and bringing them back into alignment with what truly matters. It is important to understand that simplicity is not about restriction or deprivation. It is about removal of what is unnecessary so that space is created for what is meaningful. Every chapter in this audiobook has pointed toward the same truth, that freedom does not come from having more, but from needing less. When you need less, you worry less, you chase less, and you become more present in the life you already have. This shift is not always easy. Modern life is designed to pull your attention outward, to encourage comparison, and to reward constant activity. Choosing simplicity requires awareness and consistent effort. It requires the courage to say no, the discipline to let go, and the wisdom to focus only on what adds genuine value to your life. But with each step you take towards simplicity, life becomes lighter. Decisions become easier. Days become clearer. You begin to notice that much of what once felt necessary was only noise. As that noise fades, your true priorities begin to emerge with greater clarity. You start to feel more grounded, more intentional, and more in control of your own direction. Ultimately, simple living is not about having less in a negative sense. It is about making space for more of what matters. It is about relationships that feel meaningful, time that feels intentional, work that feels purposeful, and moments that feel fully lived. The goal is not minimalism for its own sake, but a life that feels aligned and peaceful. As you move forward beyond this audiobook, the real practice begins in your daily choices. Each time you decide what to keep and what to release, what to pursue and what to ignore, you are shaping the quality of your life. Simplicity is not achieved once. It is maintained through awareness, repetition, and intention. It is a lifelong practice of choosing clarity over chaos. When you embrace this way of living, you begin to experience a different kind of wealth. Not the wealth of accumulation, but the wealth of presence. Not the wealth of possessions, but the wealth of freedom. Not the wealth of noise, but the wealth of peace. In that state, life is no longer about chasing more, but about appreciating enough. Let this be the lasting message of this journey. You do not need to do everything, own everything, or become everything that the world suggests. You only need to become more aware, more intentional, and more aligned with what truly matters to you. In that alignment, simplicity becomes not a limitation, but a liberation. Before you close this audiobook, take a moment to reflect on your own life. Notice the areas that feel heavy, cluttered, or overwhelming. These are not signs of failure, but invitations to simplify. Even small changes, when applied consistently, can transform the way you experience each day. You do not need to redesign your entire life overnight. You only need to begin where you are, with what you already have. Each decision to remove what is unnecessary creates space for something better to enter. Over time, those small decisions compound into a life that feels lighter, clearer, and more intentional. Simplicity is not about perfection, but about direction. It is about moving gradually away from chaos and toward clarity. As you continue forward, remember that you always have the choice to slow down, to let go, and to realign with what truly matters. That choice is available in every moment, and it is that choice that shapes the quality of your life. And as you move forward, may simplicity not be something you read about, but something you live each day with awareness, intention, and calm clarity guiding every step.